Hello, and welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to center around this tier list that I made on stream yesterday, and generally contextualizing it a little bit more for people who are interested in understanding the reasons or the strong points of different builds listed. If you just want the link to the tier list, I will have it in the description. It's also on my Twitch. And you can find it publicly. I don't know where else people want to publicize it. It's completely accessible to anyone who wants to, hopefully. So generally speaking, we worked on the tier list for about 7 hours, I think, yesterday. And the idea was to take all the results from our testing, both from our Rags to Riches series that took like characters from level 1 to level 80. And also like the testing we did during the closed beta, and take all these results of the testing, try to understand which builds shine, which are going to be the builds that look the best or work the best for different phases of the game. So I separated, generally speaking, the game into several sections. So we have the campaign path and day one. So this is effectively what you do on day one, which for me consists of finishing Hell Bale and also doing your leveling up to around level 80. So this is again my separation. Some people may do 2 or 3 days for that. So just remember what this means. Remember that if you're leveling with a group, of course, all these things are slightly different. This is geared towards single player as a category for the most part, and for being able to play by yourself, because team dynamics are way too complicated to actually cover. And here, of course, some of these will, and most of these, I think, also work in a group just as much. But they haven't been tested in like the group setting that I can say, oh, they're the best in the group, or that this is a ranking for a single player, is the point. We also did budget farmers for LOD. This is for when you just finished the campaign. You're not quite ready for maps, not quite ready for bossing, but you do want to farm. So this is the section number 2. Section number 3 is for early mapping. This is for when you are getting a few pieces of gear together. Maybe you got that one rune ward drop, and you're slapping everything else around it. So this is the early mapping category. So generally would be with like set items, cheap uniques, or that one rune ward that carries the build. Late game mapping, this is where you're approaching more BIS gear. It doesn't have to be fully optimized, because all these were tested without slams, and some of these were tested afterwards also with slams, just to see how much it is affected. It's not all BIS gear, not fully min-maxed, but pretty close to it. Where like to the level I think people can reach, at least within the first month of the game, for sure, if they do play somewhat frequently. And the last category is for bossing. So these are the 5 categories that I made in this tier list. And remember, you can follow along with the tier list if you'd like to while listening to this, or you can check it out at a different time or not check it out at all. Maybe what I do here will be enough for you. But a very important thing for me to say, and I said it a lot during the stream as well while working on this tier list, is 1, opinions, subjective, live with it. So all these things that you're going to see here are my opinions and are a part of my subjective experience of these builds. It's important to remember that sometimes experience with different builds, like maybe some builds I play more or are more fitting to my playstyle, so I make them look better than other builds. That could be the case. With that said, I don't think that would make a build jump several tiers, but it could be the difference between 1 tier sometimes. If you disagree with a placement, remember these things. It's okay to disagree. It's like everybody can have their own opinion. I'm not here to tell you what your opinion should be, just what my opinion is. So that's kind of like all the normal caveats before releasing a tier list. This is a result of my testing and of my experience. So yeah, let's get started, shall we? Also a reminder, I guess, I play softcore. I wrote it here so the hardcore players don't send me angry messages of like, but this doesn't work in hardcore. I didn't test in hardcore. I think for most of these builds, there should be adjustments that can be made. I don't know if it will keep them in exactly the same tier. That is not my job as a softcore creator, sadly. I am not good enough to test everything in hardcore and in softcore. That is a little too much. awkward moment where I get like a notification follows as I follow, as I record a video, but just ignore that. Okay, so for the campaigns path, day 1, this generally collects, like, again, level 1 to level 80, with solo leveling and completing the Bale in Hell difficulty. So generally speaking, I made these kind of like little paths for you guys to follow if you're not sure how to spec yourself, and by specking I mean what to put in your skill points and how to kind of like go about it, which skills can kind of like give you an easy time. I kind of gave the things that I ended up choosing in my rags to riches. I tested them and they all work, and I retested some of these in the beta as well. So we got for sorceress, firewall. I used firewall all the way up to the middle of nightmare. So again, respec around level 30 to 40. This is where I found like most of these builds to enjoy the respecs. Some of these can respec slightly earlier, some of them can do a little later. So it's up to you to decide when you feel like firewall and nightmare difficulty is not working for you. Same for double swing. Double swing is one of the builds I spec'd earlier, I think. Same with power strike. So it's up to you. Just see where you feel like you're starting to slow down. That's when would be a good time to respec into the next build. And again, firewall, you are a sorceress, you're teleporting, dropping firewalls. Whenever you respec into meteor, you start dropping meteors instead. I gave like the mercenaries that I recommend pairing, and sometimes I also gave like weapons that could be fitting them. But generally speaking, like this is the first little category, and it was mostly ranked on safety and speed. Safety and speed basically meaning how easy it is to stay alive. Like, do you need extra gear? Was a thing that I was considering here. Like, do you need to farm something to keep you kind of safe? Like, for example, sorceress. Without the smoke rune ward felt like very squishy, so safety was a little low, even though you have teleport to reposition yourself, compared to something like the druid, where you just have your summons and they keep you safe, and you can keep the same gear you have from normal all the way to hell. So this is kind of like the safety category, taking into account these kind of conditions. Speed is mostly about how fast it is to go through the campaign. For me, sorceress and Amazon were the fastest ones. Again, this can be very much due to experience, but Dawn was the first time I played in 20 years, and she was just very speedy. Decoys are just very reliable in the campaign, in my opinion, and they lead to a very easy leveling scheme. Assassin, for example, will burst the speed, blast it through. So if you don't use burst the speed and you choose to use Fate, for example, this stat will definitely go down. But I ended up running with burst the speed the entire time. So yeah, that's the general take here. For self-farm Torch and self-farm Annie, this is ranking these builds specifically, so the build you'll end up in hell with. So Meteor, Warcry for Barbarian, Decoys on, Lightning Sentry, Summon Druid, Holy Bolt, and Clay Golems and Revives. And it's basically, can you fresh out of the campaign do your own Torch, and can you do your own Nihilus? So this is for people who want to be self-reliant. Of course, for all these classes, there are builds you can respec to in order to do a Torch or an Annie on day 1. For Barbarian, for example, you can become a Berserk Barbarian. He can do it on day 1. For Necro, becoming a Bow Necro can definitely do it on day 1, especially with the recent buffs. So it's not that you don't have any options. If I have an F here, F basically means, here I put a few notes here, F equals not viable. Not viable fresh out of the campaign, of course. So can I have this bolded? Thank you. So that is the general approach here. I ranked it based on how easy I think it is. We tested a lot of these like fresh out of the campaign setups, trying to do Ubers. We couldn't test Declone in the closed beta. I tested it in my Rags to Riches. Most of these are roughly the same, so I think this is somewhat of a fair evaluation. But remember, if you're just not interested in using a respec again just to do a Torch and an Annie, this is about where I evaluate these builds if you do happen to use them. Let's move on to the next category, being budget farmers in LOD. And the idea of budget farming is, let's say you finish your day 1, you got to level 80 or so, maybe a few levels higher. and you want to start farming and you don't know where to farm. So these are the skills that I chose as like leading farmers. There are more skills, like Necro has like different builds that you can do, Paladin has different builds you can do, but I chose to give 2 to 3 builds per class. Sorceress, for example, got 3 because I wanted to represent one of each of the skill trees. But for most classes, I think I just chose 2, right? Yeah. And the idea is where can you farm? So farming areas. What skill do you use to do it, right? And what's the efficiency? I also added which merc I would add with it with the base setup. For example, using an insight on a lot of mercs, using an amp merc with vigor, using I don't know, Act 1 meditation merc with harmony, or an Act 2 insight. So you can see generally you'll have a class, you'll have a skill like Meteor, you'll have a farming area. So AB, what does AB mean? AB mean act bosses, meaning like killing Mephisto, Diablo, killing Bale, maybe trying to farm pests. And you got key farming, so just farming the keys from like Countess or Blood Raven, farming Arcane, Sanctuary for keys. It can be basically any area you want. For Frozen Orb, I chose Chaos, Cows, and CZ. CZ meaning Corrupted Zones. So again, if there's something you're not sure about, check the notes. They should be explaining this. And generally, I'm putting efficiency here. This is a little bit speculative on some senses because, of course, we don't know what the price of these will be. Maybe there are a ton of people farming act bosses and keys, and the efficiency goes down because it's more saturated. And then people farming things like cows would be doing a little bit better. But this is again speculation that I think is fair to say. None of these would change greatly based on the market, in my opinion. So I think this is a mostly stable category. And remember, efficiency is due to how easy it is to do in terms of like how speedy it is. Like, does it take me 30 seconds to run a key run, or does it take me 20 seconds to run a key run? Does it take me a minute and a half to kill Diablo, or does it take me 2 minutes? Right? That's the things that I was kind of considering. And also, to some extent, how flexible the build is and where it can farm. So some builds can only farm one area, and they can do it really, really well. So they can be really effective. For example, the Light Sentry Sin, she can farm more areas, but like she excels at farming the Arcane Sanctuary, which is a great area to farm. So I consider her an S+ efficiency farmer on early LOD. But some other builds, for example, whereas Lightning Strike, she can farm Arcane, but she's not as fast as the Assassin, and her options in Corrupted Zones are a little bit limited due to movement speed. So I consider her B+. So that's kind of the things that I was considering when making this tier. Again, you can see all builds have several builds you can farm with. I just chose the ones that I found nice and fun to play. I didn't want to include things below a certain tier for the most part, because I didn't feel like it's necessary to recommend that many builds. I'm not trying to give anybody choice paralysis or something like that. There are plenty of builds that are viable that are not here, that might be competing on the same tiers. The main reason I didn't include them is because I didn't think it's a necessary thing to include here. It's enough to get like this many options for early farming. Also, some of these builds are just the same builds you played on day one. For people who play longer, this will basically mean you don't respec and you just stay whatever you did. So it could be like Meteor for Sorceress, Warcry Barb for Gold, Decoys on for Pits and Corrupted Zone, and Travancore. Light Sentry is the build I did with Assassin. Summoner is the build I did with Druid. Holy Bolt the build I did with Paladin, and Summoner is the build we did with Necro. So again, fairly simple list, and let's go to the next section where things get a little bit spicier. So over here, this is the early mapping setup, and this is basically the category where you have maybe a rune word or two, like an Ohm or a Vex. You maybe have dropped a couple of nice uniques or a couple of set items after farming in LOD, and you feel like you're ready to get into maps. So here I listed the build that I think do well on an early budget, and the early budget is again between 1 to 2 high runes, nothing too crazy. So you might have a few skillers, or maybe you have all of your skillers but just very budgety gear. or you have this one rune word, for example, Whirlwind Sin relies on the Chaos rune word, which uses an Ohm rune. So this is mostly what you will have at this point. So again, this will describe that phase of the game of early mapping when you start getting into the maps and starting to do well. Again, choosing free builds, I think, 3 or 2 builds for most classes. Trying to showcase the builds that I think were viable with this low budget, and also showing what I would prioritize. Notable setups is what I kind of wanted to show. Over here, like, you can use pretty cheap, rune words and things like that on the sources, but every skiller you get is like a huge buff, so for her I recommend getting skillers as fast as possible. But for other characters, maybe getting a Natalia set for the Wake of Fire Sin, plus a Chopped Claw, that was pretty solid. For us, getting Gimmer Shred and Sandkicker's Fall with Elemental Charms, that is like a great investment for Vengeance. Getting Nice set on the Holy Bolt or on the Mindless Sin did exceptionally well with no skillers, no charms whatsoever. So truly an amazing investment for these 2 builds. So I'm just trying to show like a few options for these builds that you could go with in order to farm effectively on a low budget. Generally, what created the ranks is a mix of how budgety it was, or like how dependent on the item it was. Was it flexible? Could I use different setups? Was it easy to set up? Like if I would be in like a day 1, day 2 scenario and I'm just trading at whatever I find. And that was mostly what I was focusing on. Also, of course, it focused on the clear time. So some builds here, despite being slightly more expensive, were just very fast at clearing. And the best builds are the ones that were effective at clearing, but were also really cheap to set up and consistent. For example, just getting a nice set is incredibly simple. And Mindless Sin had great clear times with like 6-minute tier 1s early on, for example. So that's something I took into account. Another thing I started taking into account during early mapping is self-sustain. Do you need to chug a lot of potions? Is that something that will be limiting you? So builds that were self-sustaining, that were managing to keep their own health and mana up without having to chug potions, were also ranked slightly higher than others. And lastly, of course, things like safety and how much you can loot were credited in this efficiency, because in this phase of the game you want to loot a lot, you want to pick up rare items, you want to pick up crafting materials. So is your build capable of looting while farming at the same time? This is mainly a strength of summoner builds. Right, for example, the Druid Summoner, while being a lot slower than a lot of the other builds on the list, does get to do DPS while looting, and that way it saves a lot of time. So that's like an example of like a lot of different ways to be strong in a same category. So that is the category of early mapping. Hopefully this is what I'm hoping most people use this tier list for, because I really think this part is where a lot of players struggle and they kind of delay into getting into early maps. So this could give you an idea of like what could be a simple setup to just go into maps. And while some of those have like, what was it going up? Yeah, go down. Well, some of these setups are more simple to get. Some of those are a little bit more complicated. All of them definitely helped us when we tried our budget mapping. And now we move on to where most people are likely to have a look at, and this is the late game mapper category. In the late game mapper category, I listed the builds that I found to be the strongest, and strongest were based on efficiency, meaning how fast does it clear a map, and also with relative connection to how expensive or achievable the gear is. Some builds that I thought were very, very strong had very specific gear requirements that are not necessarily available to most players, so I decided to leave them aside. Other builds may have required a very specific gameplay in order to make it to the top, which were also builds that I was considering. And this may be updated in the future, or maybe after a couple of weeks of Season 11, for people to enjoy for the rest of Season 11. But this was the result of my testing. Remember, testing in the beta was mostly without slams. Only during the last day I got to add slams to a lot of these characters, and it mostly confirmed things that I thought. So I was pretty happy with our kind of prediction of how the slams will affect different builds. So this is where I ended up. Remember, there are no builds here that are below A tier. Doesn't mean B tier is not viable or B plus tier is not viable. All builds in C plus and B are still builds that can clear like 7-minute tier freeze or 8-minute tier freeze. This is mostly what I kind of recommend people to try if they're just trying to ask for a strong build to play. There are plenty of other builds in the game, and this is not me telling you to not play builds that you find fun just because they clear a little bit slower. That's definitely not my approach or my goal. I'm not even playing any of these builds during my first character, so this is just kind of like a heads up. So again, for efficiency, the builds that are in the S++ or the S+ tier are builds that can clear tier 3 maps in under than 5 minutes consistently, or maybe even under than 4.5 minutes consistently. These builds are S+ tier. They will of course need to have self-sustain tied into the build. They cannot be relying on potions, and they all have to be very consistent and at least somewhat safe. All these builds that I could run like for maps on end without dying. Builds that I did end up feeling like are not safe, did get some points deducted and mostly did not make this list. So that's also like, I guess, an important part of information. I of course added the merc setups. Now merc setups are sometimes very specific for some of these builds. For example, like the Act 2 Infinity Innofero, Innocence rune word. That's what Inno means over here. This should be underlined. There I go, going over my own things. So I made shortcuts just so it looks a little bit cleaner. But Inno means innocence, RW means rune word, Pharaoh equals ferocity. Act 2 is mostly defiance, but can be blessed aim for leap barb and physical sacrifice. So you'll see, like I list Act 2, but I don't say which one. It's mostly defiance, but you can also run blessed aim for these two builds. Efficiency equals clear speed plus looting plus self-sustain. This is kind of like the main things I'm looking at, while of course considering some gear things. I said that before. So again, you can see these builds like are my sorceress builds: Frozen Orb, Charge Bolt, and Nova. Again, remember that some people, let's say if I give this, I give Nova maybe to a different player, maybe he makes Nova look a little bit better than I make Frozen Orb look. Maybe on Charge Bolt, some players would do better than Frozen Orb. This is mostly, again, from my perspective and my gameplay. So remember, all these are slightly flexible. They could go down a plus or up a plus. I don't think any of those would go down a full tier though. That is like important to say. Whirlwind, Leap, and Crybarb are again the builds I chose for Barbarian. Some may ask, why did I not put Throw here? Throw simply did not average the same times as these builds managed to get during the beta. I do think that Throw Barb is incredibly fun though, and I really recommend people play it. I don't want my tier list to make people not play fun builds. I think Throwbar is incredibly fun to play and very dynamic, so just because I didn't put it here, it was slightly behind in like, this is a matter of like 20 to 30 seconds on an average map. If this kind of thing really bothers you, then for sure play one of these 3 builds. But Throwbar was really fun to play during the beta, and it would be a real shame if people wouldn't play it. So I think that's an important thing. For Zon, the 3 builds I chose ended up being 3 arrow builds: Fire Arrow, Cold Arrow, and Multi-Shot. The reason I put Multi-Shot here in A+, is simply due to the range of the skill. It ended up clearing a little bit more consistently. I understand that the skill was nerfed. I understand that people are a little bit upset about the changes to Multi-Shot. But I think now, if before you could use Bariza to kind of go into endgame, now you have this cool chase around crafted weapons that you are encouraged to do. Crafting was buffed actually in this season, and amazing bows are more likely to be crafted, and by amazing I mean high damage bows or crossbows. So take that into account. People who like crafting, you can really still get like this amazing power level on this build if you do find or manage to craft that amazing bow. So yeah, Multi-Shot stays in A+ for me. Fire Arrow and Cold Arrow stay in A for me, mostly due to range compared to Multi-Shot. I believe all 3 of these builds can shred maps with somewhat of a speedy approach, but just Fire and Cold Arrow, due to range issues, ended up performing slightly worse than Multi-Shot. For the Assassin class, we got Mind Blast, Fist of Fire, and Phoenix. All, in my opinion, S tier builds I saw during the Senpai stream. People were seeming very excited to play Assassin for the first time, I guess, in a long time. And there's a good reason. She has really cool and fun builds. She has more builds that are really great, like Claws of Thunder, that didn't make this list, for example, or Whirlwind Sin. That was a very strong build and still is a very strong build. So she has so many viable, strong builds. These are the free builds, again, that we managed to make look the best in terms of clear speed, self-sustain, and looting while doing so. So I found this build very, very fun. You can run a lot of these builds using both dual stalkers for reduced cooldown, or using more fortified approach with the Whispering Mirage, the new claw. For Mind Blast, I used an Enigma to run this build, so this is kind of important, I guess. For this build, like using an Enigma to teleport, getting extra mobility was really important for this build. For the Druid, I chose the free builds from the Elemental tree. Sadly, the Summoner Druid, in my opinion, doesn't farm as fast during the maps anymore. The nerfs did somewhat hurt him in terms of map clear speed, but Druid had already top mappers before. Fire Druid, again, in my opinion, a build that I played 500 hours in Season 10, demonstrating how strong it was, getting to 1 million kills within a week, pretty much. I think it was like 8 days or 9 days till we get to 1 million kills on this build. Absolutely clears. If you want to run it in tier 1s, you can do that like endlessly. He like so incredibly good, doing 3 minute to 3.5 minute tier 1s, but in tier 3s he doesn't stop becoming strong. Clears tier 3 maps in 4.5 minutes. Absolute monster. In my opinion, a top 5 mapper in the game in general. Some may disagree just because he's pretty squishy. I understand that in hardcore you have to tone down a little bit of his strength in order to get more survivability. That is very understandable. But he does have this kind of like teleport and things die kind of gameplay. Arctic Blast and Wind Druid, both are very nice, with like a Gust letting you get nice mobility and being able to clear stuff very fast. Wind was also buffed this season, and Arctic Blast was somewhat changed in how you approach it, because you can make minus cold resist pelts now. So both can be very, very nice builds to play, in my opinion. And both have really nice clear times, managed to do 5 minute tier 3 maps somewhat consistently, so this is pretty cool for them. Over here on the Paladin, we got Holy Fire Sacrifice. This is the build that I've been focusing on the most in the beta, even though I didn't want to play any Sacrifice after doing Holy Free Sacrifice last season. Paladin, I think, has the most variety of S tier builds, from what I remember. He had like, I think, 6 or 7 of them. Then again, Holy Fire both works in Sacrifice and in Charge. Sacrifice was slightly stronger, but if you like Charge, run Charge, I guess. Like, I'm not here to tell you how to play your Holy Fire builds. So yeah, even after the last nerfs, I still check the build. It's still amazing, still performs great. Might be like a top 3 mapper for the season after the 2 big time Necro builds. It is a very easy build to play. It is very easy on the hands too. So I really recommend this for people who want to have an easy time just farming. It is expensive, does require a few rune wards to get working, so you'll have to farm on something else till you get to the point where you have like your rune wards. Relies on the 2 dragons and the Hand of Justice rune ward to get it to kind of work. But it is a very strong, capable build for endgame. And I think, again, is an amazing build for people who just want to have like a nice, easy time, clearing maps very fast and jumping from one map to another. Physical Sacrifice over here in S tier manages to get almost the same times as the Holy Fire Sacrifice. The main thing I would say is that this build is somehow more expensive than Holy Fire. From what I at least tested, you can play it on a more budgety approach, but it will definitely get reduced results. But once you really min-max it, it is incredibly strong. The difference between these 2 builds, I think Physical Sacrifice does better in player 8 groups, from what I understood. Holy Fire I do not think will hold the same in player 8 scenarios as much as Physical Sacrifice. That is maybe something you want to consider when you're playing. And the third one I got is Vengeance, because I didn't want to have another Sacrifice or Charge build like these. Vengeance is an amazing build, very reliable. The nerfs that it got during the beta are very minor. They do not make it any less viable or strong. We managed to get 4.5 minute to 5 minute maps on it very consistently. So again, very strong build, relying on fire and lightning mainly. And of course on this Act 3 Exile light merc. This is a merc that you'll see being used on both of these paladins. It's a very strong merc, very important to learn about this merc, the Act 3 merc. I didn't use this merc a lot before this beta, before testing more paladin stuff, and yeah, I learned a lot about it, and it really improved my clear times. So I really recommend looking into an Act 3 light merc, because it's a really strong merc. You know, it really helps you when you want to get into that speedy zone. Lastly, Necro, the king of mapping, in my opinion. You'll see that all the builds for Necro are S++ or S+. Necro has more S tier builds, if I'm being honest, but I just couldn't include more builds for Necro. Necro, in my opinion, is the king of mapping. Mostly, I think it's due to people not playing these builds enough. They're not very popular, so they're not getting nerfed. And I guess that is the approach, right? You gotta wait till people catch on, and when they do, you can finally tone it down. But these builds are incredibly fast. I understand that a lot of people don't like the poison playstyle, and I think that's fine if the playstyle doesn't mesh with you. That's definitely like you can always skip a build even if it's strong. It's always important to enjoy a build more than it is to play a strong build. And you also have Corpse Explosion here. I considered putting Fire Golem here instead of Corpse Explosion. Both of them kind of have similar clear times. The main reason why I chose Corpse Explosion over Fire Golem is because Fire Golem requires snapshotting and very specific gear. So I felt like Corpse Explosion is more flexible. You're more likely to get a Corpse Explosion build going, and you don't need to do snapshotting in order to get the build to be more effective. And I just don't like snapshotting, so that is why I went with the Corpse Explosion over Fire Golem. Generally speaking, these are the builds that I would recommend you play if you want to play speedy maps. You can see some classes, I talked about this before, Barbarian feeling like a little bit slower to me when you get to the high end of mapping. To an extent, this is something you cannot avoid due to them being walking classes for the most part, or spinning or leaping classes. You can try to alter this using an Enigma in some cases. For example, Crybart gains more mobility using an Enigma. It effectively works like a Nova Sorceress. I do think he's slightly worse at it than a Sorceress due to having, again, cooldown on the blinks, which Nova does not have. So these are like things to consider. But if you like these builds, don't let the 20 seconds a map be the reason you don't play a build. I really think that would be silly. This is of course a tier list ranking strength, not how fun a build is for you. And that is the first thing that I would recommend considering when choosing a build. With that said, this is my late game mapping tier list. And lastly, the bossing tier list. Now, on the bossing tier list, I had a lot of conflicting ideas as to what I should be considering, and this is what I ended up with. Since we already mentioned things that can do bossing on day one, which is mostly Declone and Uber Tristram, I did not want to list make like a ton of columns for like tier 0 on each build, and just like how to do like different builds. If you see a build here, it can definitely do tier 0. A lot of other builds can do tier 0, but these builds will mostly be easier. And I try to include things that I've actually seen people clear tier 2s with. It could be that there are builds that I'm forgetting or that I've simply missed, or builds that are very niche maybe. So all these things could be possible. These are the builds that I recommend you try, or that I can offer you to try bossing with. Remember that some classes, these are not ranked. Some classes are stronger than others in bossing. So Sorceress and Necro are much more difficult. I don't want to rank like the bossing ability of classes, since I haven't personally done tier 2s with every single class. I don't feel like that is my place. As you can see on my notes, I said Lucian tier 2 will be a new addition in season 11, so it is not included at the moment. Senpai also mentioned that tier 2 might be a stronger tier than what it was last season, so I didn't want to make a tier list for Lucian based on something I haven't tested, so that is why it is not included in this tier list. But a lot of these builds are also the builds that you will go to Lucian with. And I will do my best to update this in the future and add like a column for Lucian as well. But generally I split this into 3 categories, being tier 2 clone, tier 2 Rathma, and tier 2 farming. The difference being tier 2 clone and tier 2 Rathma are builds that you can do like the first kill ever. If you just want to do like 1 kill and you're thinking what is a strong build, what is a capable build, so I listed a bunch of builds for Sorceress, Meteor, Chain Lightning, and Blizzard plus Bolts. I put a question mark here just because I haven't seen anyone do it, but I'm pretty sure that you can do it. Like I just have never seen people do it, but I believe that it is doable, especially with the buffs to Blizzards and Bolt. Tier 2 Rathma. You can see the change here. Throwbarb and Berserk for the Barbarian class. Plague Javelin and Plague Zon for both Clone and Rathma as well. Blade Sentinel for both Rathma and Clone. I've seen Light Traps being done. I've also seen Fire Traps, but I like Light Traps a little bit more, so I only included Light Traps for Tier 2 Clone. For Rathma, I haven't seen any other build on the Assassin. It could be that there are builds that can do it. I don't want to say there aren't, I just haven't seen them myself, so I haven't included anything here. For Druid Rabies, Summoner with a question mark, just because due to the nerfs we have not been able to test whether Summoner is still capable of doing these. I speculate that he could, it would just be more difficult, so I put it with a question mark, so left to be seen. But generally speaking, Summoner and Maul are the 3 builds that I would recommend for Druid. Druid is actually a very flexible class in terms of just getting a kill on tier 2s. It has a lot of different builds that can work as well, like what's it called, Fireclaw and Fury. But these are the builds that I chose. I don't want to put more than 3. I feel like that's just bloating things a little bit. Paladin, Fizz Charge, I still think is going to be the main approach for bossing. I'm speculating a little bit on Cold and Fire Charge, and also on Berdin being able to do some of these. But since I haven't tested them, I'm going to leave that to another day. And we got Holy Bolt, of course, for tier 2 Clone, another common approach, especially earlier in the season. Desecrate and Poison Strike for Rathma, and we got Blood Golems due to the Woog's amazing kill that he displayed on his YouTube. If you want to check bossing material, I actually really want to link Woog's channel if you guys don't mind. I learn a lot from his videos, and he does so well with all these classes. He's truly like a master of tier 2 bossing, and I really recommend you check his channel out if you want to learn more about bossing. He demonstrates a lot of these builds in his channel too, so you could learn if you want to learn what you should do for these builds. You could learn from him for sure. And over here we got tier 2 farming, so this section might confuse some people, but for people who are looking to clear tier 2s in order to find the unique boss items, so builds that farm well. Basically this is mostly due to how fast you can clear those and how safe it is, how consistent it is. So the builds I chose are Berserk, Throw, that I think will be buffed in Season 11 due to the changes to Groom Ward and the changes to Frenzy. We got Jab that was buffed, and Plague that was buffed slightly. So both of these are going to feel a lot better. We got Blade Sentinel that was slightly nerfed, but I believe will still be a very viable, consistent bosser. Maul, that I think is one of the fastest, or maybe the fastest boss clearer for all 3 bosses. I can 100% guarantee that for Declone and Lucian. For Rathma, I'm like, 90% sure that it is correct. So again, an amazing bosser if you want speed. It does take some min-maxing to get to that speed, but definitely a strong speed bosser. Summoner that is also very safe and consistent, which is important in this category. Rabies is capable of farming, but is like a little bit slower than the other builds. Rabies and Plague, Poison builds are just generally a little bit slower. And we got Fizz Charge, which was the go-to farmer, I think, in Season 10. I think despite the nerfs, it's still going to be a viable farmer. Just again, going to take a little bit more min-maxing to do so. And that is it. That is the tier list. I don't want to explain every single reason that I put every single build. I think the overview that we gave here is enough. Hopefully this tier list is not just used for people to argue about, but also is used to, you can argue about it if you want, but hopefully it's also used for people who are just looking to get exposed to builds, and maybe people who are not sure what to do but still want to get a strong build at the end of the season, or maybe in the start of the season. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. I'm actually super excited on one side that so many people suddenly got to the channel. It's like a crazy growth the past couple of weeks, and I really appreciate it. I'm trying to get to all the comments. It's getting a little bit difficult, and obviously I'm also prepping for my own season start. So I'll do my best to get to all the questions if I can. If I didn't, remember, it's not personal. It's just that the YouTube message suggestion thing sometimes misses a few messages when I open my notifications. So I'll do my best. If I miss something, you can always hit up my stream. I linked like the stream and the YouTube here for people to check out. A little bit of self-shilling is always nice. But yeah, you can always drop questions on the Twitch. I try to answer all the questions there as well. And if you have questions about builds, usually I can give answers on the fly there without having to make like a full video build guide. So yeah, I can always try and help over there. Of course, you can also ask questions on the Discord. The Discord will be linked in... I don't know why I didn't link the Discord here. I might add the Discord link here. I'll also have it in the description. If you enjoyed this content, or if you just enjoy like tier list content in general, make sure to drop a little like and a little subscribe for the channel. Seems like all of you did do that recently, so I really appreciate it. It's been a great time exploring the beta sorry, and learning with everyone on the streams this past week and a half. I wish everyone a happy open beta if you are playing it, and if not, I'll see you all in season 11. I'm planning to release a few more important guides in the next few days before season 11 drops, so make sure to tune into those if you need some sort of guiding on how to start your season. And yeah, I guess this is it. This is the tier list. I hope I made some of you proud, and I hope I didn't make too many of you angry. But with that said, have a good whatever you're having. I'll see you in the next video or in the next stream. And until the next time, bye bye bye.